Flight attendants, both past and present. What's the most entitled behavior you've seen from a passenger? Every so often we get the odd straggler who boards last, who finds a vacant seat in first tour business thinking that we won't know that they are from coach. Excuse me sir, may I see your boarding pass? Sorry, your seat is 58A not 1A, but I'm so tall, I need the leg room. Awkward silence. My girlfriend's mom is a flight attendant. One time a woman got quite angry because her daughter spilled apple juice all over and there was not a clothes dryer on the plane for her daughter's sweater. Might have suggested she open the door and hold it aloft for it to dry. Not an attendant, but was on a flight with really bad turbulence. It went on for about 10 minutes, then the old lady next to me reaches up and presses her button. Attendant walks over to see if the woman is okay. The woman begins to yell at the attendant for the rough flight and that she's been flying her whole life and clearly the pilot has no idea what he's doing. The stewardess just walked away. Not an attendant, but once got stranded at Newark for 22 hours. After our flight had an unfixable fault and was cancelled late at night. We got put up in a hotel, but understandably by the time the new flight rolled around, earliest they could fit in a new flight, everyone was quite tired and agitated. As we are waiting to board the new flight, the flight attendant announces they would be boarding people with additional needs and families with young children first, followed by first class, then premium economy etc etc. All pretty standard stuff. Obviously it can take a bit longer for people in wheelchairs to board, so makes sense for them to go on first. It's common on most airlines, I believe. Anyway, this business dude races to the front of the crowd and starts yelling at the attendant, saying it was already disgusting that he had lost a day due to their incompetence and now he had to wait even longer despite being a first class passenger and paying $$$ every year to fly with them. The worst part is he's looking at others in the crowd to back him up. Like it's perfectly reasonable to scream at this woman who, like us, had also been stranded and had most likely had very little sleep and was doing her best to do her job in this difficult situation. But she was awesome. Without missing a beat, she smiled and nodded and said okay sir, then made a big point of leaning into her mic and telling the waiting line of people in wheelchairs and mothers with babies that this gentleman needed to board before them and could they please wait. Literally every single person at the gate is looking at this guy with disgust as he tries to backtrack and say he doesn't mind waiting for the first group. But the attendant says no, you made yourself quite clear, let's get you boarded. The others will have to wait. He is humiliated as he sheepishly walks by. She handled it perfectly. Former flight attendant here. I remember flying into SFO and going through the final walkthrough asking everyone to wake up, buckle up, headrests forward, tray tables up, and collect trash. Halfway through, the pilot said flight attendants, be seated immediately, which indicates a lot of upcoming turbulence. So I quickly started to trot through with my trash bag to my jump seat when a man yelled hey. I was a few rows past him and he had hit cup and wet nap in his hand. I quickly said I have to sit down and turned back towards the back galley. I then felt something hit me. I looked back and he had thrown his trash at me and was staring at me like the little he was. I heard a few people gasp and everyone in the last 8 rows or so was tuned into the drama. I pick up the trash, walked over to his row, and said I am sorry, I cannot take trash right now. The pilot has indicated that I need to sit down, and toss the trash back on his lap. He just kind of stared at me with a defiant look in his face and held out the trash again as if I was going to take it. I turned and left and I heard him yell a few more times, but he didn't throw anything. I have had a lot of passengers before, but for some reason, that one sticks out. Not one specific passenger, but a type of behavior I've unfortunately seen too much of. Couple will book separate seats. The man in a premium economy seat with extra leg room. The woman in a normal economy seat. The woman will then play the sad sack and ask another passenger to give up their comfy seat so they can sit together. If the other passenger refuses, usually because they paid extra and literally don't fit in a regular seat, some will even complain to the crew to make them move the other passenger. And all this to save a few bucks on the second premium seat. Edit. Seeing as a lot people asked. No, crew don't move passengers because they are sitting next to someone else's spouse. And certainly not from a premium economy seat. I once watched a very well dressed businessman have an epic toddler level tantrum at a check-in counter when he was advised his flight was delayed due to fog. He literally screamed and jumped up and down and demanded that the airline better do something about it, or else the guy working behind the counter just smirked and suggested that business guy was welcome to go outside and try and flap the fog away with his arms. Entire queue burst out laughing. I was a kid flying out to Utah to start my teen tour. About halfway through the flight, departing out of NY, the captain got on the speaker to announce an engine had failed and we needed to make an emergency landing in Chicago. Needless to say, we got a little concerned, except for one passenger, who stormed up to the flight attendant and explained she was a nanny and needed to get to Utah to attend to the children she took care of. I'm not exactly sure what she was hoping, that the pilot, upon hearing that a babysitter was on board, would risk the lives of everyone to fly us all through, or that the flight attendant would be so moved by this story that she would climb out on the wing and repair the engine mid-flight. Alas, there was no emergency jetpack to give this passenger to blast away from the plane to get to Utah on time, and she was told to sit down. Not a flight attendant but fly a lot, and I was on a plane where half the plane were ignoring the rules and stuff. When we touched down, these people immediately got up walking around and started taking their bags out of the overheads. Mind you, the plane hasn't parked, it's just literally touched the floor of the landing strip, so it's still moving and it's dangerous for half the people on the plane to be ducking around, and even worse, taking all their heavy bags down above everyone else's heads. The flight attendants are now desperately trying to get these people to sit down until the plane stops moving, and some people were waving their hands at them dismissively. I think the captain heard the commotion and the flight attendants half yelling, because all of a sudden the plane did a very abrupt stop which knocked over all the people standing up and then continued to park. The flight attendant then said, "This is exactly why we have rules." This happened about 10 years ago. I was late to the airport due to heavy traffic and missed the cutoff for the baggage drop and hence my flight. Someone directed me over to the customer service desk to see about being rebooked on another flight. As it turns out, the next flight had one seat free and the CS person was happy to move me to that at no additional charge. Whilst this was being done, another man was standing next to me at the desk, arguing with the CS person because he'd also missed his flight, and demanding that he be rebooked on the next flight because he had a meeting to get to and he was very important. And why are you not rebooking me? Don't you know you're just CS staff and should be doing as you're told? This guy is being a total for something that wasn't even the airline's fault. The rep serving him says, "We can't get you on a flight to Brisbane until later tonight as they're all full. However, we do have a flight to the Gold Coast in an hour. Or you can take your chances on someone not turning up for a Brisbane flight and you can go on standby. Which of those would you prefer?" For ref, GC is about an hour-ish south of Brisbane. Starts on a rant saying that's not good enough. He has to be in Brisbane for a meeting and they will find him a seat on the next direct flight to Brisbane. The CS rep says, "No, I've provided the options available to you. Which of those would you prefer?" Then starts another rant, ending it with, "Do you know who I am and how important I am?" CS rep has clearly had enough of this and says, "Mate, I don't care who you are, and if you're flying economy you're clearly nobody important. Which option do you want?" Went off on another rant, but I think he soon realized he wasn't getting anything other than the options provided. Can't remember which one he chose. I'm a passenger, not a flight attendant, but it's a good story nonetheless. I was on a flight from NYC to PDX. Only empty seat was next to me, a middle seat. Bulkhead, but the kind where there isn't a wall, just the first class seats in front of us. Door is about to close when a large sweaty man comes running onto the plane to claim the empty seat. He was carrying a full-size pizza box. All overhead bins were already closed and full, but that didn't stop him from proceeding to open them to find a place to stash his pizza. The stewardess kindly informed him that he couldn't put his pizza in an overhead bin, but it'll get stepped on, he gruffly informs her. She proceeded to tell him to take his seat and put the pizza in front of him. He told her that he flies with pizza all the time and has never been treated this way. He persisted, but as their argument was getting pretty heated he finally succumbed and put the pizza under the seat in front of him and sat down. The stewardesses have now started the safety video demonstration and he pulls out a flip phone and proceeds to make a call. I can tell he's going through menus, so I'm thinking he's calling Delta to complain. Nope. Turns out to be his landline phone company. He had been late paying his bill and was trying to get them to waive the late fee. They wouldn't. He is arguing with them. Plane has pushed back from the gate and is headed toward the runway at this point. Stewardess comes over and tells him he needs to put his phone away now. He motions with his hand to say 1 minute. No, sir, it needs to be put away now. He flips it shut dramatically mid-sentence and puts it in his pocket. Stewardess is back to the front of the plane. He then decides to stretch. I'm pretty much plastered to the wall trying to stay out of his way as he extends his arms up, and then to the side, etc., and then twists in his seat back and forth, clearly agitated. He then extends his arms up, stretches out his fingers and proceeds to crack his knuckles very expressively one at a time, sorta like a primary school bully would do on the playground before they were gonna kick your ass. In that whole knuckle cracking process he flips a middle finger toward the flight attendant. I didn't notice her reaction as I was just waiting to get this 6-hour flight underway and over with. Next thing I know, I can tell we're pulling back into the gate. Flight attendants prepare for arrival and cross-check message. Door opens. Cockpit door opens. Captain comes to our row. Sir, I understand you were harassing my flight attendant. I need you to leave the plane now. The pizza man attempted to argue and even ask me and the other neighboring passenger if we had witnessed anything. Clearly the pilot wasn't budging on his decision, so the guy got his pizza off the floor and left the plane. Door closed and we departed. Empty seat next to me.